But some people say there's more to the Mandela effect than a simple distortion of that, didn't you? Known to many simply as Monopoly Man. He's known for his waistcoat, jacket, top hat, moustache, and of course, his monocle. But wait a minute. The Monopoly Man has never had a monocle. I know, you're absolutely certain that he does, but I promise you, Mr. Pennybags has never, ever had a monocle. You have made it up entirely. This image doesn't exist. Don't panic, you're not alone. The vast majority of people are absolutely certain that they remember the Monopoly Man with a monocle. So what's going on here? Well, these people, and possibly yourself, have all fallen victim to the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect is when a great number of people remember something in a completely different way to how it actually was, or remember an event that never actually happened. You know those times when your mind betrays you? You are certain it happened that way, but the facts say otherwise. It happens to us all, and psychiatrists have a word for it: confabulation. A confabulation is a disturbance or distortion of a memory. But some people say there's more to the Mandela effect than a simple distortion of memory, and the real reason that millions of people's memories are betraying them is far more terrifying and sinister. The name Mandela effect is named after the man himself, ex-president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela. In 1962, Mandela was arrested and thrown in jail for 27 years for starting a workers' strike at a time when South Africa was led by a minority white rule with an iron fist. Black and white were segregated. This was the apartheid. A large number of people around the world vividly remember seeing footage broadcast on television of Nelson Mandela dying inside prison during the 80s. They even remember seeing his funeral live on international TV. Of course, this isn't true. Mandela was released from prison, became president, and died in 2013 at home. So what's going on here? How come millions recall seeing his death in the 80s? Well, it's the first big mystery that coins the term Mandela effect. People are constantly discovering new examples of the Mandela effect. In recent years, many have come into the public eye via the internet. One of the most spine-tingling is the mystery of the Berenstain Bears. The American viewers among us will remember a series of children's books from the 60s onwards. This lovable family of bears was a significant part of everybody's childhood in the US. There were over 300 books in total, and not to mention a TV series in 2003 that went by the same name, the Berenstain Bears. But here's the truly shocking thing. The Berenstain Bears never existed. Sure, there was a cute family of bears, but they were actually called the Berenstain Bears with an A. This has seriously messed with the heads of millions of Americans because quite literally everyone knew it as the Berenstain Bears. Many have said it's down to the creators changing the name at some point because Berenstain sounds less Jewish than Berenstein. But the name was never changed. It was named after the two creators, Stan and Jan Berenstain. But something eerie is definitely going on here. There are some very rare examples of official merchandise being uncovered deep from the back of people's garages and attics, showing the franchise being spelt Berenstein, such as on this old VHS. But to confuse matters even further, the name on the front of the tape is spelt Berenstain. Creepy. But could this just be no more than a typo by the graphic designer? You remember the most famous line from Star Wars, don't you? Luke, I am your father. Except that line was never said in the films. What Darth Vader actually said was, no, I am your father. A small difference, sure, but then why does the whole world keep saying, Luke, I am your father? There's more. Remember Silence of the Lambs? Everyone knows what Hannibal said to Clarice when they first met. I mean, it's only the most famous quote from the entire film. He said, hello, Clarice. Nope, never said it. That line never appeared in the film. Don't believe me? Go and watch it. Hannibal actually said a rather forgettable "good morning." Even the University of Richmond quoted the fictitious line in a scientific paper. Even people who have never seen Silence of the Lambs are familiar with Hannibal Lecter's sinister "Hello, Clarice." Another stark example, then, of the Mandela effect. Remember Sex in the City? It was actually called Sex and the City. The Kit Kat logo doesn't have a dash in it. It never has. The Queen in Snow White never said "Mirror, mirror on the wall." Oh, and remember Jiffy, the well-known American peanut butter? There's no such thing. It's called Jif, not Jiffy. Hell, I'm British and even I recall it being called Jiffy. But then is that just because that's what millions of other people have been calling it all this time? The Flintstones was actually called the Flintstones, despite no one in the history of mankind ever calling it that. So, is there an explanation to all of this? Well, kind of. There are 3 theories that do explain the Mandela effect, but all of them are equally as terrifying. The first popular explanation involves parallel universes. Some believe that we live our lives not just within one universe, but we are instead slipping and sliding between multiple universes within the multiverse without ever realizing it. Each universe is ever so slightly different, and some believe that the Mandela effect is people noticing the minor differences between these other dimensions or universes. Or perhaps we don't travel between universes. What if we've always been in the same universe, but instead memories are leaked from other universes and seep into our universe as they intertwine and collide? This rather outlandish theory isn't currently backed up by any specific research. But that doesn't mean it isn't scientifically possible. New quantum mechanics theories suggest that there are multiple universes and they do interact with each other, possibly sharing information. So, when we remember something vastly different to what the archives tell us, is it information coming from a parallel universe? Or is it something far more sinister? As we all know, if something strange happens, there's a conspiracy theory surrounding it. It's the second law of the internet, after "don't click on strange links." Mandela effect conspiracy enthusiasts believe the infamous Illuminati, or whatever shady group of men in suits are running the world from behind the scenes, have actually changed subtle elements of history to better suit their new world order. Just hoping that we wouldn't notice. But oops, some people have. Why an omnipotent group of secret world leaders would think that the Monopoly Man's monocle wasn't quite fitting for their new world order is anybody's guess. But what if you actually made all of this up? And this is the most terrifying of all the explanations, because this implies that our memories are nowhere near as reliable as we thought. Yet, what I'm about to tell you is by far the most scientifically accepted explanation for the Mandela effect. Psychologists say that we remember these events, books, films and images so vividly differently to how they actually are because we've all created false memories. What do you remember most about your childhood? Is it what you ate for dinner each night or what you watched on TV? Your memories of these things are probably fuzzy at best, yet you can remember the names of all of your friends, and that time when you broke someone's window playing football. You probably remember all the times you were naughty, and that's because you talked about those events afterwards with your friends. Your parents talked to you about it afterwards. You received punishment in relation to that event. Conversation is arguably the most powerful memory creator there is, and talking about an event after it happened creates far stronger memories than whilst the event is actually taking place. Memories are created by connections forming in the brain. Your brain is full of cells called neurons, and connections between them called synapses. Imagine a neuron that represents a window and another that represents a ball. As a child, the moment you kicked that ball through batshit Bob's window, a physical synaptic connection was created in your brain between these two neurons, thus forming a weak memory of the event. But then, when you tell your mates about how you just broke batshit Bob's window, that connection actually gets thicker, strengthening that memory. Then, when your mum confiscated your Game Boy afterwards, the connection grows once again. But it goes even further. Every time you recall that memory from here on out, the connection gets stronger. By simply remembering something, you are strengthening that memory forever. Of course, this also means that if you remember something wrongly, every time you remember what actually happened, you are instead strengthening the incorrect memory that's already there. This is why we can't see past our memories. Our brains tell us that they are unquestionably reliable, but we have no way to know whether that memory was false to begin with, until someone comes along and tells us or shows us that we have remembered it incorrectly. This is called false memory, and it is by far the most likely thing that's causing the Mandela effect. In 1974, psychologists Loftus and Palmer showed 45 students a clip of a real car crash, then asked a question. How fast were the cars going when they hit each other? The range of answers were vastly unreliable, but it was also discovered that by changing the wording of the question, also completely changed the people's answers. Those who were asked how fast were the cars going when they contacted each other gave a much slower speed than those who were asked how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other, demonstrating just how unreliable memories can be and how our conversations with others can distort our memories. Mandela didn't die in the 80s like many thought, but in 1990 he was released from prison. The event was significant and was broadcast on TV across the world, with millions tuning in to watch. There was a large state procession on the streets of South Africa to celebrate his release, which many Americans and others remember watching. But such an event could easily be misconstrued to have been a funeral procession. Nelson Mandela's name was nowhere near as famous back then as it is now, so people may not have paid much attention to what was actually happening at the time, thus creating a false memory that he died. The Berenstain Bears was read by school kids who couldn't give a toss about proper spelling. Steen is also a far more common suffix to a surname than Stain, so it makes perfect sense that children simply called it the incorrect name of Berenstain Bears when discussing the book with friends, and so grew up with this false memory. The same logic applies to movie quotes. You've probably heard "Luke, I am your father" and "Hello Clarice" many more times in real life during conversations with others than you have heard them in the actual films, at least the part in the film where the line was supposed to be. It turns out that every instance of the Mandela effect can be explained by collective false memory, which is disappointing to some and scary to others. The simple fact that everyone you speak to shares the same misconceptions about something actually strengthens that false memory. You've likely spread misinformation to hundreds of others when you've quoted lines from films that were never said, and discussed events very differently than what actually happened. We are all part of the problem, and new examples of the Mandela effect will continue to surface, because nobody's memory is perfect. And I for one welcome them, because that's what makes us human, and such curiosities keeps life so interesting. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, support me on Patreon before you forget who I am and tell your friends you watched a guy on YouTube called 36. Click up there to become a patron. Doing so helps me to make better videos. And click down there to watch another video. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe.
Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well. I wanted to briefly talk about something before I start this video. it has come to my attention, brought to me by a subscriber. I put his link in the description bar and gave him credit for this. He sent me a link with the creator of the first quantum computer giving a lecture. Now, what you will see is something so interesting. And I'll tell you what, it really is pretty spooky stuff. We're talking about the D-Wave system, and we're talking about quantum computing. We're talking about accessing what he says, and these are not my words. These are not the speculations of a man on the internet. These are from the actual creator of the first quantum computer. And he says that, and I quote, they are accessing parallel universes very similar to one just like ours. Everything happening in it with slight differences. Well, isn't that interesting that we're seeing slight differences in the things around us? We're not talking about huge things, but we are seeing differences in things. Slight name changes, apostrophes that weren't there before, logo changes, you name it. Now, I have to ask you, nobody asked me if I wanted my reality to be jacked with. And these people, and he states that he thinks they're amazing scientists doing amazing and have amazing minds who are going to waste because they're not fulfilling their potential. And it's really sad to me that, well, I'm so sorry that you are so bored that you feel like you need to be playing God and jacking realities, because that's what's happening right now. So I want you to witness this. I want you to see what he is talking about. I want you to listen to the wording very carefully, because it's very important for all of us to understand the truth. And the truth is, your reality is changing, and it's going to change quite a bit, because these new computers, are accessing higher realities, parallel universes that are around us. And it's something that we're going to need to pay attention to. It is something that's going to be very, very important in the near future. So with that, I hope you all are having a wonderful holiday weekend, and I'll be back with you soon. You guys have a good one. Bye.
You may consider this next group of speakers somewhat unusual, if not to say strange. We have the creator of what is the world's first quantum computer in person here from Burnaby, BC. We have the president of the super high-tech company that makes Canada's iconic Canada Arm, but whose hobby it is to try and reconcile modern science with the Bible. And we have a filmmaker from Los Angeles who has stumbled on what appears to be evidence of life after death. And my thought in putting together this somewhat improbable combination of speakers was that out there where the theory of the very large and the very small connect, and out there where our 13.7 billion year old and expanding universe touches the void, you come upon mystery and the possibility of God. That was my thinking. So let's begin with Jordy. Jordy, I don't understand much about quantum computing except that it's supposed to be the next big thing in power and in speed, and that you are the only company in the world now actually making one.
Well, hopefully after this 17 minutes, you'll understand what they are and be excited about what you might be able to use them for.
These are really big deals. They come in at about $15 or $20 million a piece.
Something like that.
And have been bought by major American research and corporations.
That's right, correct.
All right, Jordy.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. So quantum computing is a very technical subject, and I'm not going to talk a lot about the specific details, of which I'm glad. I'm sure you're glad. But I'm going to try to give you an idea about what the kind of thing is that we build and why people are so excited about it. But I'm going to wrap that story in another story. How many of you have children? Let's see, hands. So it's almost everybody. So I have 3 children. The youngest is 4, the oldest is 8. And they're very different, but they share one thing in common. And the parents in the audience may, I suspect, have noticed the same thing. Each of my children has fixated on a particular stuffed animal as being their special friend or toy. And in particular, my middle son, James, absolutely loves this little guy called Bear Bear, which is the picture that I'm showing up here. Bear Bear was a limited release Thai Beanie Baby, and there aren't very many of them that were made of his particular form. And one Christmas, I decided that it would be insurance policy to go and try to buy some more just in case something happened to Bear Bear. So I went on the internet and did a search, and I was only able to locate 2 others that were for sale, and I bought both of them. So now he has 3 of these little guys. But the reason that it occurred to me that this might be a good place to start is a conversation that I had with him last week. He wanted to sleep with his older brother in his bedroom, and his older brother wouldn't let him. And he was very sad and despondent, and he was like, I'm scared, I don't want to sleep by myself. And I said, well, you've got Bear Bear. And he said to me, Bear Bear isn't real. And so I found this very intensely distressing for a variety of reasons that maybe you'll understand when I go through this. And I assured him that Bear Bear was as real as anything else in the world. And he said, but he can't speak and he can't move. And so I said, well, what you really mean is he's not alive. And he said, yes, that's what I mean. So for very young children, the sense of being real and the sense of being alive are somehow connected. And I'm going to circle back to this point at the end. But before I do that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about quantum computers and why people care so much about them. There are literally tens of thousands of some of the brightest people in the world today trying to build these machines and understand them. And I'm going to tell you why. In my last 15 years of working on this type of stuff, I found that scientists divide up into 2 categories of zealots about this field. The first half are people who are absolutely entranced by the physics of these things. This quote is from a respectable scientist, in fact, one of the founders of this field, that may look a little strange to you who don't follow theoretical physics, but there is a very clear prediction that our most successful theory of nature makes, and that is that there are an enormous number, mind-bogglingly large number, of parallel realities, as real as this one, that have different consistent histories. So imagine a world where all of the laws of physics as we know them are obeyed, but different decisions were made along the way. Different decisions at the level of tiny microscopic particles, different decisions all the way up to what you chose to eat for lunch, and whether you chose to come to this session or not. Quantum mechanics makes a very specific prediction that all of those are as real as the thing that you remember. And this is bizarre, because we don't see those other things. But science has reached the point now where we can build machines that exploit those other worlds. And quantum computers are perhaps the most exciting of all of these that we have within, or almost within our grasp right now. So people from a physics background love this. They want to understand the world. They want to understand the universe, how it all works. There's another type of person who tends to come from the computer science side that's like, yeah, okay, that's all great. But there's a different thing going on here, which is just as exciting, if not more, and that these machines that supposedly can do this wild stuff, let's forget about how they work, if you could build one, could solve problems that you could never, ever solve with any computer of the sort that we built. If you took every single atom of silicon in the world and made the most sophisticated conventional Intel-style processor that you could build, there are problems we know of that I could write down on a sheet of paper that you could never, ever, ever solve with that thing, that you could with this kind of machine. So that's very exciting. Humans use tools to do things. If you give humans a new kind of tool that can do things that you couldn't otherwise do, imagine the possibilities. So you may think, well, this is all fine and dandy, but aren't these things in the realm of theory and speculation, kind of in the same regime as other futuristic things you may have heard of, which may be allowed by the laws of physics but aren't here yet? That's not true. There are, in fact, many of these machines deployed now in openly available research centers following the model that was used to introduce supercomputers to the world. They're too big and ornery and difficult to operate to put in your home, too expensive also, but you can give them to a place which will manage them as a shared resource that will offer that service to the world. And there are two of these now. One of them is at the University of Southern California. And this analogy with flight, I think, is an interesting one. So a horse can beat, or could beat, the initial flight of the Wright brothers' flight in speed. But a plane is not a faster horse. A plane is a different kind of machine. The plane takes advantage of another resource that nature gives us, this third dimension, in order to do something that matters to people better that you could do with any horse. It doesn't matter how fast you make a horse, it will never fly, at least the kinds of horses that we know about. So these types of computers now are being thought of in the same way. They're not terrifically powerful yet, but they're doing something completely different than what your computer does. And that thing is like flight. It gives these computers access to these new resources, maybe you could call them parallel universes, in order to do something that you couldn't otherwise do. And that's not the only one. In fact, the one I'm going to come back to and talk to in the context of the story that I'm wrapping this in was recently installed at NASA. And Google was the primary interested party that pulled this whole thing together. And this one is really exciting to me, because what they're going to do is apply this machine to an area that I think is fundamentally important. It's a crux of our future as humans, and that's, can we build machines like us? So building machines like us might be possible. I certainly believe it is. I might be wrong. But what I do know is that the types of approaches that people are taking now to build intelligent machines benefit immensely from what this machine that we've built does best. So what this center is about is applying this beautiful new computational idea in the service of trying to make intelligent machines. Now, I can't think of anything personally any cooler than trying to use quantum computers to build intelligent machines, so this is very exciting to me. Steve Jurvetson has been a longtime friend and investor in the company, and for those of you who don't know him, he's a Silicon Valley investor who's probably the smartest VC that I know of, and certainly the one that's the most attuned to technological trends. He's on the board of SpaceX, Tesla, Synthetic Genomics, which is Craig Venter's company, is trying to build artificial life, and D-Wave, and that's it. And this is his particularly poetic way of framing the difference between the machines we build and conventional computers. This is what they look like. There are two of them. These are from our lab in Burnaby in British Columbia. From the outside, they look like giant black monoliths, big metal boxes, about 10 feet on a side, 12 feet tall. And they are powered, they have a fridge inside them, a refrigerator that cools these chips to almost absolute zero. Just a wisp, a fraction of a degree above absolute zero. Hundreds of times colder than interstellar space. Amongst the coldest and most isolated and extreme conditions that humans have ever been able to engineer. These fridges, interestingly enough, which are called pulse tube dilution refrigerators, have a thing called a pulse tube, which emits a sound roughly once per second which sounds eerily like a heartbeat. So if you have the opportunity to stand next to one of these machines, it is an awe-inspiring thing, at least for me. It feels like an altar to an alien god. They really are impressive machines. At the heart of this big box is a tiny chip about the size of your thumbnail. And on this chip resides all of the wonder and magic that makes this thing go. I'm not going to describe in any mathematical detail how it all works, but let me give you an analogy. In quantum mechanics, there's this concept that a thing can exist in two states which are mutually exclusive at the same time, quote unquote. And I'm using those words because the English language was developed before we had concepts to describe what these things actually are doing. But I'm going to give you a roundabout way of understanding this. Imagine that there really are parallel universes out there, and now imagine you have two that are exactly identical in every respect, all the way out to the horizon as far as we can see, down to the last little atomic detail of every single thing, with only one difference. And that's the value of a little thing called a qubit on this chip, which is a contraction of quantum bit. And that qubit is very much like a bit or a transistor in a conventional computer. It has two distinct physical states, which we call 0 and 1 for bit. In a conventional computer, these are mutually exclusive. That device is either one or the other and never anything else. In a quantum computer, that device can be in this strange situation where these two parallel universes have a nexus, a point in space where they overlap. And when you increase the number of these devices, every time you add one of these qubits, you double the number of these parallel universes that you have access to, until such time when you get to a chip like this, which is about 500 of these bits, you have something like 2 to the 500th power of these guys living in that chip. So the way I think about it is that the shadows of these parallel worlds overlap with ours. And if we're smart enough, we can dive into them and grab their resources and pull them back into ours to make an effect in our world. Now, this may sound very odd to you and bizarre, and in fact, I am using language that a normal theoretical physicist probably wouldn't use, but this is, what I'm telling you is absolutely correct and in line with the way that these things actually work. We've been doing this for some time now, and in fact, we have our own version of Moore's Law. The doubling of the number of these qubits on the chip has happened once a year for the past 9 years. So for the last 9 years, every year, the number of these qubit devices has doubled, and it will continue to do so. As a point of reference, in terms of how fast these things are, in one generation of chip, the one from the system that was installed at USC to the one that Google and NASA have now, the speed of the device went up by almost 500,000. This is the kind of progress that you're going to see with these types of machines going forward. And 500,000 sounds like an abstract number, but I put up a little mental comparison here to see what 5,000 really means. 500,000 is a big number when it comes to speed. All right, so now I'm getting into the last part of my talk where I'm going to make some predictions, some dangerous predictions. So predictions are very dangerous for a variety of reasons. Often they're wrong, which is one. But I think they're important because predictions somehow are our internal desires made manifest. Predictions are about what we want to happen, maybe not what will happen. And I'm going to make 3 predictions, and all of them are dangerous in the sense that they're very unlikely to happen, maybe, but I think that there's a very good chance that they may. As an aside, I just wanted to say that at least in the Valley, Silicon Valley, and maybe in the United States in general, there's a very deep feeling of unease about the way technology has been developing. Because we have all of these vast array of very smart people, and what they're doing is crap. They're building things that cannot last. They're building things that are not important. This is a little bit of a controversial point of view, but I believe it. But I think that the reason for this is it's low-hanging fruit. Computers haven't been around for a long time. And I think that what's going to happen is that as people get more comfortable with computers, the attention will turn from the Twitters and the Facebooks to very important things. So here's my first prediction. I'm going to predict that by 5 years, NASA will have found an Earth-like planet with Earth-like atmosphere and water on it, and serious people will start discussing how we get there. And by the way, they're going to use one of our machines to help do this. So that's my first prediction. My second prediction is that this business of parallel universes is going to turn out to be very important. This picture that I've got under here is what's called a gravitational lens. When Einstein proposed his general theory of relativity, it came with a bunch of experiments that you could use to test it. And one of them was that if there was a point of light very far away and a galaxy in the middle, that galaxy should bend the light, and you should see a ring. And this was eventually observed. And I think what's going to happen is somebody is going to come up with an experiment to test this reality of these things. And we're going to be able to do so. My third prediction that I'm going to end on is the most important of all. I believe that humanity is on the cusp of the most important technological, societal revolution that's ever occurred. And that's when we got to the point where the machines that we build outpace us in every respect. I don't mean that they're better calculators. I don't mean that they're better at searching. I mean everything. And I think that we're very close. And my prediction is that within 15 years, we will have machines that outpace humans in everything. Thank you very much.
Times running backwards, or maybe everything is slightly off in a way, like universes aren't created from nuclear reactions, more just form, and then nuclear reactions occur, which then create more universes, which then reverse to create other universes. As I said, infinite universes, infinite everything. So there's an infinite number of possibilities. And even as I speak this, my very speaking of this is creating an infinite number of universes, and in one, and in many of them, this is exactly possible.
Okay, so back to, let's see if we can wrap this up, the Mandela effect, and let's have at least
the flow of reality and time as we know it. So, technically, there's a universe in which God can exist, right? So, like, as your book suggests, God is everything because of E equals mc squared. Literally, God is within and can be everything. But then again, if there's an infinite number of parallel universes, there is an infinite possibility that there's a parallel universe in which God does not exist or is more powerful. In other words, can God create an unliftable stone or object? If so, then God should not be able to lift it. But if God is truly powerful, then he should be able to lift it, and therefore he can't create an unliftable stone. So that's a paradox right there. Anyway, but the point about that is that that means that there is power that is greater than God. And considering that there is an infinite number of vibrations and therefore an infinite number of realities within our dimensional space, or I guess altered-dimensional space, considering that they're either higher or lower, still in the same confined space, there is an infinite number of parallel realities with an infinite number of parallel dimensions that actually can create a powerful or a less powerful form of God, E equals mc squared as we know it. Unfortunately, though, this is a paradox, quite how we encounter one with Aleph Null. In other words, imagine a line, right? And then from that line, you put a smaller line that is a fraction of, that is a fraction closer to the original line, and then the same thing for that line, the same thing for that. Eventually you'll end up with this triangle shape, and that triangle shape is infinity, technically, in a confined space. Now, of course, infinity can't really be put in a confined space, but imagine it 1 second.
Okay, we're finding science
Right.
demonstration material here.
Mom, do you have a marker? I have a pen already. It's written. Anyway, so imagine it like this, right? There's one line, and then a fraction closer, and a fraction smaller is the next line. And then a fraction closer and a fraction smaller is the next line, so on, so on, so on. Till eventually we get this sort of thing. It's a little bit like this. Now, that's infinity in a confined space because there's nothing here or here, because this is still there. But what happens when you add a line here? Now, that is actually still infinity, because it's still in the same place, but it's not in a confined space, you may say. So then what if we do the same thing over here? Well, no matter how much you do it, it is technically still infinity. This quantity is still infinity. And you could do this forever and then do an even bigger version of that, so on and so on. But if you're talking about this being Aleph null, and this also being Aleph null, that can't really be possible. So if we're ordering in 1, as in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, blah, 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 and then what comes after that, we get an interesting term, which is omega, which is the lowercase form of omega, you might know, but we're talking about lowercase here. And then after omega, omega necessarily isn't bigger than Aleph null, it's just an ordered form of infinity. So imagine it like this, omega plus 1, and then omega plus 2, plus 3, plus 4, plus 5, and so on and so on and so on and so on, until eventually we get to the omega, 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 to the mu, all the way up for Aleph null to omega, to omega, to omega. You get the point. Anyway, what we're getting here is we're getting into a factoring infinity to the highest level. And after that, eventually you get other facts like trin and a whole bunch of other higher infinities, and a lot of theorists, such as myself, have believed to figure out these highest infinities to a point where we start to get to our cardinals, and after we get to our cardinals, we start to get to uncountable cardinals. For more information, you can go to a Vsauce video, How to Count Past Infinity. It basically reviews this infinite information if you don't understand it. But the point...
I don't think there are many people who understand this other than you, Max Lachen. So you were saying back to the E equals mc squared and the new definition of God, which was our original conversation. You're saying it's accurate, but you're saying it's not accurate.
Right, so just like quantum physics and superposition, everything can be in a state of either positive and negative at the same time, rather than positive or negative, as we know in our mechanical classical world here. But that means that there is an infinite number of parallel universes in our multiverse. Let's move that there and focus more here on these lines. In our multiverse, and there's an infinite number of these realities, and in each reality, as every electron spins an antimeter of an antimeter to an antimeter to an antimeter around a nuclei of an atom, we're catapulted into, an infinite number of alternate universes. Just imagine this is the start of the universe. This is our original timeline, right? But as soon as this starts, we are infinitely catapulted into an infinite number of parallel universes. And somewhere infinity down the line, here's our universe, right? And then we're constantly shifting into alternate universes as we speak. And that expansion of infinite universes is our reality as we know it in time. So therefore, if there are other universes, they're next to ours, and this actually relates to my theory of the Mandela effect and how the particle accelerator altered the weight of one electron and therefore destroyed our universe and shifted us into the universe that's directly next to it, and therefore things are different in this universe.
So you believe that this thing that some people call the Mandela effect is actually real?
Oh, it's absolutely real.
Can you describe what it is for people who have never heard it before?
Sure. So the Mandela effect is the effect of, some people thought that Nelson Mandela died at a certain time, and other people remember it as a different time. And this goes for a lot of other things. Star Wars, classic videos, Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. Everybody knows that. Well, if you actually look back to the original film, it's not Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. It's Magic Mirror on the Wall. And some people actually...
Which, of course, it's not.
It's not,
in
right.
the reality I grew up in.
Right, exactly. And, I mean, some people in this reality, I guess, maybe didn't make it from our last reality, I'm thinking. I'm still trying to figure out why they don't remember it. And some people do. But anyway, though, that is the Mandela effect, and we are living in an alternate expansion of our universes. Even in my own scientific notes, I've found rewritten signatures and things that are a little bit different from originally what I wrote.
So how did that actually happen? Let's take your notebook, or let's take Mirror, Mirror on the Wall, like an old film, animated film. How did it actually change?
Well, it never changed. We changed. You see, we were moving relative to our universe, and then our universe destroyed, so now the universe started to move, or I guess our parallel universes, our multiverse started to move parallel to us, because we were out of alignment, and that just destroyed everything. So technically, the universe didn't change, we did.
I just had a little pause there. Just my accident. We weren't deleting anything. People were saying, "Oh, what's going on?" Because I had a text coming in. So there are two studios, let's say the Disney studios. One studio, Studio A, creates a film that has Magic Mirror on the Wall. Another studio says Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. Is it two separate studios, or what happened?
No, same studio, different timeline. So, good thing we have a multi-layered napkin.
This is very high tech
Yeah.
in terms of our graphics.
Definitely sophisticated.
Go ahead.
Anyway, so as I said,
Because I love that one, because everyone remembers Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. I mean,
Everybody
no
does.
one, and there's a whole Sally Field. You like me, you really, really like me, blah blah blah. And now
build it,
it's you
they
like
will
me.
come, build it, he will come. The peace sign.
Oh, really? I didn't know about that one.
Oh yeah, there's so much. I have a record of all the ones that I've been able to
Of course,
match.
of course you do.
And some other stuff that I should tell you personally about later.
Okay, can't
Anyway,
wait.
so yeah, infinity down the line from our original timeline, where here's ours, and then of course this timeline is only moving forward because, well, the expansion of infinite number of realities behind it. But what happened was we made this universe sort of out of balance, and our universe,
Because of the collider, the super collider.
yeah, we altered the weight of a single electron, which I believe shifted us into a parallel universe, considering that we caused a chain reaction that could have catastrophically destroyed our universe. I mean, even when we thought about starting it, we thought our universe would implode, and then it didn't, and we're like, oh, it's okay. Well, maybe it did implode. We just instantly got shifted to another universe.
And that's your belief.
Right, in my belief. Of course, this is just a theory and it's still being developed.
Okay.
But yeah, maybe in that infinitely small moment of time, we were instantly shifted.
Could it also be that there were some people at CERN who are kind of like quantum hackers, and they go, "Oh, we have this little vulnerability in time-space continuum, and we're going to go in and we're going to pick these iconic moments in our civilization, you know, Mirror, Mirror on the Wall, things like, and we're going to change them just to screw up people's heads to realize that reality is not as they think it."
That could be completely possible, although there's some stories, fairy tales, campfire, scary tales that occurred at CERN, supposedly, or that are set at CERN. Dimensional beings or satanic portals, a whole bunch of other crazy stuff, and a lot of people believe they have to do that to consistently maintain our universe, or bridging two universes or dimensions even together. Now, then again, they're fairy tales.
Okay.
And since when are fairy tales real? But then again, all fairy tales are based off of something. Anyway.
Yeah, back to eternity.
Right.
Go ahead.
So, when this universe was destroyed, then again, here's our progression of infinite expansion of parallel universes. And here's ours. When this one just destroyed itself, and as I said, there's an infinite number of parallel universes. That means there's an infinite possibility that everything contained within our infinite range happened, existed, will happen. For example, there's a reality where possibly maybe this world didn't even occur. Maybe there's a reality where our universe instantly started and then destroyed itself. There's an infinite number of possibilities. But however,
which is such an incredible thing to try to wrap your head around, right? It's almost impossible.
Yeah, there's...
just the word infinity is almost impossible to really completely understand.
Then again, there are higher levels of infinity, as you'll see in videos.
Higher levels of infinity. So
yeah,
infinity is not just infinity. There's variations on that theme.
Higher levels of infinity. There's smaller infinities, larger infinities. It's hard to wrap your mind around that there is something larger than everything.
Which is,
It's even a paradox as itself. It's an oxymoronic phrase.
And that's where you come back to God. Well, God could be God of the universe or the multiverse, but then...
There must be another multiverse of multiverses of multiverse where there's a universe where there is another more powerful or less powerful or equal God as we defined it in E = MC squared, the new definition of God.
So other than you and maybe a few other people, we're really not going to figure this out, are we?
Not for a while, no, I don't think so. But,
okay, go ahead.
Anyway, so the funny thing
about... Well, I mean, do you feel like you have it figured out?
Well, I think I do, yeah. But then again, this is all just a theory, and since when can you prove a theory about infinite universes and infinity and alternate realities? When can you prove that? So do I think that I know it? I think that I might have some basic, very, very basic idea, even gist, of what possibly can be happening. But then again, this is just theoretical physics, and even in, the title, it's theoretical.
Right.
I don't actually know everything that's happening. There's never a way that I can. So really, it's just a matter of how much do I think that I can explain the unexplainable. And maybe I'm not even explaining at all.
Right, but and any of this stuff is so vast and so amazing. It's just like, people's concepts are completely blown of anything once they tap into these larger realities. Anyway, let's finish this and see if we can at least understand straight lines here and the Mandela effect.
Right, so universes that are right next to each other, and as I said, these are infinitely close yet infinitely far away from each other. We have our universes. And the farther away a universe is, the more different it is because of each individual event. Now, the distance and amount of universes between these two lines is infinite. Like, it's kind of crazy. You can't draw it or visualize it. It's just infinite between each line, and then an infinite line between their lines, and lines and lines and lines and lines, infinite over and over again. But anyway, somewhere down the infinity over here, we have a parallel universe, right? And in this parallel universe, maybe it's completely different. Like, everything is completely different. Like, maybe our entire existence is nothing and never will happen, but maybe time's running backwards, or maybe everything is slightly off in a way, like universes aren't created from nuclear reactions, more just form, and then nuclear reactions occur, which then create more universes, which then reverse to create other universes. As I said, infinite universes, infinite everything. So there's an infinite number of possibilities. And even as I speak this, my very speaking of this is creating an infinite number of universes, and in one, and in many of them, this is exactly possible.
Okay, so back to, see if we can wrap this up, the Mandela effect, and let's have at least one human being who might watch this potentially be able to understand what you're saying.
Right. So when our universe was destroyed over here...
And this was, you think, when CERN Super Collider did its experiment?
Large Hadron Collider, yeah.
Or the Hadron?
Large Hadron Collider, right.
Okay.
And so after our universe and timeline was destroyed, we were, let's zoom this in a lot, zoom zoom, 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 and the universe that's directly next to ours, it's just directly next to ours, energy cannot be created nor destroyed, only transferred from form to form. But if there are an infinite number of universes, then there's 100% chance that this happened, at least maybe in another universe, maybe not ours. Then again, there's also an infinite chance that this is our universe. So if this one was eliminated, all the energy from this universe created or transferred a universe that was right next to us.
So the original universe is mirror, mirror on the wall. The transferred to universe is magic mirror on the wall.
Right, and even if you have quantum data or other things that possibly could help calculate these claims, then you'll find that there is a fluctuation pattern of which our universe is on a similar plane. So if this is our plane, there's a universe in this plane, which means that this is a larger dip and this is a smaller dip. So that way there's a fluctuation in our reality of actually things that are real to us but are different in other realities. It is a consistent fluctuation, and I think this fluctuation is known as the Mandela effect for some things, and a lot of things are the same, but other things are, very different. So in this universe, it's pretty much almost exactly the same as ours, for the fact that we're all here, almost, and that everything that we see is pretty much the same.
What do you mean almost?
Almost as in, I don't know. There's an infinite number of possibilities, so there has to be at least an infinite possibility that somebody on this planet is gone from that time. Or maybe there is an infinite possibility that there is. But the point is that it's a parallel universe to ours. So it is not our universe. It's just not ours. But...
So we are now not in the same universe that we were in when Mirror, Mirror on the Wall was a part of a film.
Well, that's what I'm theorizing, yeah.
So we're in a different universe.
Exactly, completely different universe.
Even though it looks almost otherwise completely the same.
Is exactly the same, except for that 0.000000000000000000000000000000000 infinite number of zeros, 1%.
Yes.
Difference.
Right.
And that 1% difference is large on our scale, or even small on our scale, but it's still different. Enough that it's able to contain our energy, but not enough that it's the same. As I said, it's a parallel universe. It's not the same as ours. And if we have to arrive at the same time that we left, then there has to be difference. There's that fluctuation. And one of these fluctuations was maybe something different. Maybe one person decided to walk on the other side of the sidewalk, as it is uncertainty. At least in our future. I mean, if you're in a higher dimension like the 5th dimension or looking on our 4th dimension, uncertainty is just a matter of which way you're going, like a road. But to us, uncertainty doesn't happen because we can only see the present as it's happening. But anyway, yeah, so parallel universe fluctuations.
So, Mary, is it Mirror, Mirror on the Wall or Magic Mirror on the Wall?
Mirror, Mirror.
Mirror, Mirror. Definitely a vote for Mirror, Mirror.
Right.
Right?
Actually, there was a movie that was done. Julia Roberts was in a movie called Mirror, Mirror.
Yeah.
Based off of that quote.
Right, but maybe that movie is now called Magic Mirror.
Actually, I checked. It's Mirror, Mirror.
Okay, so they didn't change that.
Right, but then again, there's a parallel universe where they did change that. Or we just shifted into a parallel universe, but that also changed. That one thing also changed. And you can find that multiple things have changed.
Where it wasn't Julia Roberts, it was Meryl Streep.
Right.
Again, I think what's exciting, and someone who is less sophisticated than you, like myself.
No. Everybody is exactly the same. Everybody pretty much is equal, just in different ways, more accurately. Like one person is equal in maybe his ability to identify multiple different forms of color, but to him that's just regular.
Right. What's the name of that? What's the name of that crab or something that hammers
the mantis
people?
Shrimp?
Yeah, the what? The
mantis shrimp?
Right, can see like a million different kinds of colors.
12 different colored planes. We can only see 3 different colored planes. It could see 12.
Right, so cool. Anyway, the point that I was trying to make when I was talking about sophistication, the bottom line, which you've been repeating in many different ways throughout this little Facebook Live thing, is that infinite universes and just the very concept of infinity is pretty mind-boggling. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
I
like,
mean-
but it affects everything on at least a theoretical basis.
Well, yeah, everything and nothing. So,
And there we go.
yeah, so it's pretty uncertain, but then again, uncertainty is uncertain. And uncertainty can be certain and uncertain at the same time.
There you go. No, I think that sums it up. There it is, quantum physics right there from,
Yeah.
say your name,
Maxwell Lawton,
and you are
well, I'm a theoretical physicist,
of course, and you're how old?
13.
There you go. Thank you, Max.
Thank you. Awesome.
Houston, we have a problem.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we have a problem. Houston, we have a problem.
Is Houston, we have a problem. Houston, we have a problem. Houston, we have a problem. That's the line. That's the line I was familiar with, and there's and it's apparently different now, or for some it's exactly the same because, well, quite frankly, with the Mandela effect, some people notice a change and some don't, and both are correct. So, Houston, we've had a problem. Past tense. That's what the actual line is now in this present reality. Houston, we've had a problem.
Houston, we have a problem.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
He told me you killed him. No. I am your father. No. That's not true. I'll never join you! If you only knew the power of the dark side.
When I first saw the dialogue that said, Luke, I am your father, I said to myself, he's lying. I wonder how they're going to play that lie out.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
He told me enough. He told me you killed him.
No. I am your father.
Say what?
Jokes. I heard that you would tell a joke before every production.
Yes, we had a tradition of telling jokes right before, at places, right before curtain. The filthier, the better.
Always naughty, either ethnically naughty or sexually naughty.
Not for morning TV.
Well, we've got one. Should we do it?
Oh, yeah, go for it. Why not?
Okay. What does the redneck Jedi say?
No, you asked that because I'm a redneck or because I'm Jedi?
No, because we're both rednecks.
Okay.
But
the redneck Jedi says, Luke, I am your father and your uncle.
Okay, guys, I want y'all to see something. This is interesting. I typed into Google Trends. This tells you when somebody searches something. It's called Google Trends. A lot of you guys know about this. It tells you when somebody types in a search, it tells you when they typed it in and what year, what month, and how many people. I guess, I don't know if this is... I don't know if it goes by 100,000 or 100 or whatever. I'm not for sure. But on those days, it shows how many people type that in the search engine. When I type in, when did Mandela die? It shows right down here, September 2004. 3 people started typing that in. And if you follow it, it goes 2 people, and these are every April, March, February, and then it spiked in June. 6 people typed that in. Now, that's not what got me. What got me was where it was that they typed. South Africa. That's where 100 interests. That's South Africa, where Mandela is from, or in the territory he's from. Now watch this. I'm gonna go over here to South Africa. It shows 100 people in South Africa. Now watch this. In 2004. July 2005 and June of 2005. Okay, June 2005, 40 people in Africa now, South Africa, where he lives at now. Type that in, and 41 people on July. And then it goes off the grid. There's no more searches of it. Okay? There's no more searches. And then boom, April 2010, 8 people asked. And then you go down and boom, that's the note for Google. Let's see, important to our geographical assignment was applied to from 1/1/2011. Okay, then you go down here and boom, it jumps off the charts. When did Mandela die? That's when he actually died in our reality. In this reality here. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. That's when I remembered he died. My wife, she remembers him dying back in 91. But me, now a lot of this Mandela stuff I agree with, a lot of it. But this one right here, the Mandela one, I remember 2013. So it shows where it spiked. But let me show you guys, show you guys something else. Let's go back. No, let's go back. And let's type, watch this, guys. Watch this. Mandela effect. And hit enter. Now watch this. Okay, it goes off the charts. It starts going off the charts around August of 2015. That's when it started, like, I mean, not off the charts, but it started getting some activity. It actually got 1 or 2 here, but this is when it started making its climb right here. July 2015, August, and then boom, it jumps right off the charts. August 2016. So I'm thinking that's when everybody started kind of catching on, and it started, you know. Now, but if you come back here all the way back to 2004, well, what do we have here? Check it out. This is in 2004, before any of us even knew the word Mandela effect. One person on February, March, April, May, June. Before we even knew about what the word Mandela effect was, in 2004, somebody typed that in, and then boom, it went right off the grid. Nothing else was heard. Doesn't that seem strange? Now that, let's see where that was at. Let's see, let's go down here. Let's find out. Let's see if we can find out where it came from. Okay, let's click on America. Okay, there's nobody in 2000, so it didn't come out of America. Let's go to the next one. Let's go South Africa. Oh, wow. What do we have here? Okay. Look at this, y'all. January 1st, 2004. In Africa, South Africa, somebody typed in, 100 people typed in Mandela effect. This was back in 2004. And then boom, it went off the charts. And then boom. Oh, wait a minute. This one is, wait. Here we go. 49 people. This is in Africa now. This is not the United States. The United States didn't get any activity. This is all in South Africa. Now, this is crazy. Now, look, go down. Boom. The days go by. And boom, 20 people. Now, let's start watching where it goes. Okay, boom, boom. 2009. I can't make this shit up. Y'all got to see this. 2010. Now, you see with a spike. The spike went... Something happened in June 1st, 2004. And this is in South Africa. Now, if anybody should know when Mandela died, it should be them, not us. So if you go down, and then when it really jumps, when it starts taking off, it's around May 2016. And I guess that's when everybody started catching on or whatever. Now, remember, that's under Mandela effect. This is, what is that, 12? What is that? Shit. What is that? 2009, 85. I'm 6, 10, 6, all the way to now 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 years ago. 13 years ago, somebody typed in Mandela effect. And it was a lot of them. A lot of them typed it in. And that's all down in South Africa. Okay, so let's do this. Let's go over to, and it all happened in Eastern Cape. Most of the hits came from Eastern Cape. So where's Eastern Cape at? There's Eastern Cape right there. Now I don't know. Now I'm maybe I should have did some research on where these places and where exactly he's at. Hold on, babe. Hold on. But you guys need to check that out. Type that in. Go to Google. Wait a minute.